Hello, my juicy peaches, and welcome back to my channel. It is your priestess Peaches here, supporting you to live your juiciest life and co-create a heavenly world. I still really want to get a little jingle. I know that everyone and their cat has been doing response videos to the whole Aubrey Marcus situation. And I just want to say that I am not against polyamory. I am not against open relating, as long as it is mutually consensual, as long as there's not any power dynamics going on, and as long as, yeah, both, all the people involved are aware and are deeply desiring that and consenting. And no matter what dynamic you're in, whether that is polyamorous, whether that is monogamous, conscious relating, conscious communication, and honesty and integrity and respect are very much key to a successful relationship. I disagree with the conversation around polyamory versus monogamy or monogamy versus polyamory. I don't think we should be pitting these two models of relationship against each other. I think it is completely subjective, and it is not for anyone to say which one is more spiritual, which one is more advanced, which one is deeper, which one is safer. It's not for anyone to say that, because there's so many variables and it is completely subjective to a person's individual experience. I actually believe that we are wired for both, because if we look at our genetics and we look at our biology and biochemistry, we are hardwired to spread our seed. It's the procreation genetics within us. Spread our seed, populate the earth, have as many partners as possible so we can, the survival of our species. Then there's also the pair bonding genetics within us, which is mate for life, have that one person so that we can raise a family. And this is the case whether you have children or not, whether you want babies or not. These genetics are within us. That is how we are hardwired. We have both of those pathways within us. And I guess some people are more, like, maybe their procreation genes are more activated than their pair bonding genes, and some people's pair bonding genes are more activated than their procreation genes. Who knows? I don't know how that works. All I know is that we have both these pathways within us, and we can utilize both those pathways romantically and sexually and in our lives. And I believe that love, actual love, not just eros and desire and sexual energy, I believe that love is infinite, and we have a vast capacity for love, and maybe some people more than others, but I think it's definitely possible to romantically love more than one person. And I guess if that's not something you can get your head around, if that's not a vibe for you and you don't really understand that, then another way you could look at it is, I know this is not in a sexual or romantic sense, but you know, you love all your friends, you love your family. I have nieces and nephews and I love them all equally. And I have like infinite amount of love to give equally to my family and friends, right? And so it is possible to have equal love for more than one person. And that can also expand into romantic love for some people. Everybody's different. Some people couldn't imagine that. Some people, like I said, are really pair bonded, and once they're with someone, they can't imagine falling in love with somebody else. It wouldn't even be on their radar. Whereas other people may be more easily able to experience love for more than one person. Again, it's completely subjective. One dynamic is not more evolved than the other. And I think that is ridiculous to suggest that one dynamic is more evolved than the other, because they both come from our primal genetics that are built in within us. They both stem from our biology, right? So it's not fair to say one is more spiritual, one is more evolved, one is deeper, one is safer. It really just depends on the people involved. It depends on the relationship. It depends on their skills and how knowledgeable they are about conscious relating. It's not about the model itself or the structure itself. That's my opinion anyway. You may not think that, and that's okay. We're allowed to have differences of opinions. So I just want to share a little bit about relationship stages and limerence, just before I get into the red flags that I saw in the Aubrey Marcus situation. You may already know this. This is something that couples counselors, psychosexual therapists, sex therapists, relationship coaches will usually know. And that is that there are 4 main stages of any romantic relationship. And those stages are: the honeymoon phase is the first phase. The next stage is what I call the reality hits phase. Then you come into deeper love and joint creation. And those two kind of go hand in hand. So the honeymoon phase is the phase where you meet someone and you have the chemical reaction of attraction. You have this explosion of biochemicals, neurotransmitters and hormones going off inside of you. And this means that you put your heart-shaped, rose-tinted glasses on and you are seeing this person's positives. You are seeing all the ways that you're similar, all the ways that you connect. You feel this magnetism, you're drawn to them. Everything is fun and new and exciting and novel, and they can do no wrong in your eyes because you're seeing them through your heart-shaped rose-tinted glasses. Sometimes people will refer to the honeymoon phase as the limerence phase, and this can be in varying degrees. So limerence is, like I said, it's the chemical reaction of attraction. It's that falling in love feeling. It's that lustful infatuation. But limerence can go into obsession and addiction, and you have to be careful because you don't actually know that person yet. You don't know them truthfully from the whole perspective because you're seeing them through the lens of your heart-shaped rose-tinted glasses. And that limerence is driven by novelty. Sometimes it can be driven by projection and fantasy as well. You are projecting onto that person this idealized version of them. You are projecting onto them all the things that you hope they're going to be, all the things you long for. You can project onto this person and assume that that's who they are. That's what it can feel like because you've got all these chemicals going on inside of you. And it can bring you into fantasy rather than reality. Sometimes this can be a form of trauma bonding, or it can be a form of validation, like the ego wanting validation from the other person, and it can be your 2 egos or your 2 traumas getting a kick out of each other, getting some dopamine and getting some validation from that dynamic. So sometimes, even though those feelings are real because they're happening, it's not always based in reality. And sometimes it feels really, really intense. Many people chase that honeymoon phase. They chase that limerence. So the next phase of the relationship is the reality hits phase. And this is the phase where you start to slowly take off those heart-shaped rose-tinted glasses, right? And you start noticing your differences. You start noticing where you don't align on things, where your values are different. You start noticing how they don't think about things the same way you do. And therefore there can be disagreements, there can be buttings of heads, there can be niggly things, there can be awkwardness. You start to see that, oh, their family is really different to mine and their family values are completely different to mine. And actually it's not just this person, it's their whole life that is coming into my life and my life coming into theirs. And you start recognizing where you are incompatible or where there are differences, and you start noticing each other's flaws, and then your wounding can come up and stories can come up at this point. And a lot of the time when things get a little bit more serious like this, and when the reality hits, a lot of people will bail. And normally that's after 1 to 2 years where that reality hits really kicks in. And a lot of the time people can be addicted to or just chasing that limerence, that feeling of falling in love, that honeymoon phase, that fun, light-hearted, joyful, playful infatuation phase. Some people seek that again and again, and they lose interest when the reality sets in. And so they can be on to the next thing. And they assume, okay, this isn't going to work out because we're too different. But they don't realize that actually you can move through the reality hits phase, you can move through that together to come into the deeper love phase and the joint creation phases. The only thing is that when you come into the deeper love phase, normally what happens is you are coming into this deep respect, acceptance of each other, a friendship, a true bond, friendship bond, like a lifetime bond. And unfortunately, what can happen after the reality hits is that you lose that spark. You can lose that chemistry, the passion, and the attraction and the magnetism to each other. And so what can happen is people will enter into the deeper love and the joint creation, but without any sexual chemistry and spark. That just goes out the window. And so they can often stay in a sexless relationship or just have a companionship without the eroticism included within their dynamic, or not very much. And the joint creation phase, that could be creating a family together, the vision for your relationship, buying a house together, living in a certain location you both want to live in. It's like creating that vision of your life together. And for some relationships and some couples, that also involves a joint mission in the world, like because maybe you have similar beliefs and similar work in the world, and so that can also play into your joint creations together. That can be a joint mission. And the truth is, you can reignite that spark and you can experience a kind of honeymoon phase, but it's way more sustainable within deeper love and joint creation when you're in a monogamous dynamic. It's just that most of the world hasn't been taught how to do this and doesn't know how to create sustainable lovemaking, sustainable attraction, chemistry, magnetism. And so what can happen is that people start to turn and look outside of the relationship for the answers rather than going deeper into each other, into intimacy, intimacy. Okay, people start looking outside of each other. So they might start thinking, they might start fantasizing, they might start watching porn or watching more porn. They might start thinking about cheating, or they might start thinking about opening up the relationship. Because if they've gone into deeper love and they're missing the eroticism, they're going to be wanting to seek that elsewhere and try and get the spark back. And so I want to just share something here. So when you're in the honeymoon phase, where all those chemical reactions are going off, there's a lot of fiery masculine energy, right? Within the relationship and in the sex life. It's that phase where you're at it like rabbits, yeah? And you have a lot of masculine energy, spontaneous desire and spontaneous arousal. And it's just easy, and you're turned on and you're desiring each other and you want to have sex all the time. Once reality hits and all those chemicals have subsided, especially for women, because feminine energy is more responsive rather than spontaneous. So normally what happens, especially for women, but not just women, those lustful, limerence-y chemicals subside, and then what you need is to understand and accept that you're probably going to have more responsive desire and contextual desire rather than the spontaneous desire. What a lot of couples do is they'll try to spice things up with more masculine energy, fiery things. But especially for a woman, it's too much stimulation. What's actually needed is to include the feminine energy sexual approach to balance things out, because you've just had this fiery masculine energy, kind of peak orgasm, procreation pathway type sex, what you see in the movies and porn, when actually what's needed, rather than going down the route of bringing in loads of sex toys, not saying that that's a bad thing, and rather than sexy underwear and, watching more porn and all of this, these are all like external things. Actually, what's needed is to bring a new way of sexually relating, which is about more feminine energy, which is slower, which is not goal orientated, which is not an agenda focused way of doing things, which is deeper bliss, which is different types of orgasm, not just the peak orgasm, which is sometimes beyond ejaculation and orgasm altogether. That way you can have sustainable lovemaking, you can have a sustainable sex life and relationship and sustainable eroticism. But when you're constantly seeking the thrill and the limerence and the honeymoon and the masculine energy, and you're not balancing that, and you're not having the true union of the masculine and the feminine, then the fire will burn fast and bright, but it will very quickly burn out. So that's just my little take on what I know to be true about relationships. So now I'm going to get into the red flags that I could see within this situation. I'm not going to go fully into Mark Gaffney, even though I believe he has a big part to play in this, a big role to play. I'm doing a separate video on him. So I've got 8 reg flags. Reg flags. Oh, red flags. I've got 8 red flags. I don't know why. Just ignore me. Okay, 8 red flags that I'm going to speak about. Okay, so the first one, similar to what I've been talking about, they are blaming monogamy instead of addressing the core issues. So they are saying it's monogamy's fault. Monogamy doesn't work. It's all because of monogamy. So let's have radical monogamy, polyamory, instead, right? So they're blaming the structure, the model, rather than actually looking at the core issue. This isn't about monogamy or polyamory. It's about how people are using these frameworks to avoid deeper healing, to avoid their wounds. It's about when people don't know how to communicate truthfully, without their own self-deception and delusion. It's easier to blame the structure than to look at things like your level of emotional maturity, your level of sexual maturity, your trauma patterns, and your true unmet needs. Not desires, needs. There's a difference. Some people do just chase that constant novelty from other people, and they don't know how to create novelty within monogamy. And so they are constantly chasing that limerence and the chemistry of that novelty with someone new. Instead of facing that, they label monogamy as the issue, when actually they're the issue. When monogamy is portrayed as restrictive or anti-evolution, it can create an illusion that expansion must involve other people. And that's just not true. The structure, the model of relationship is not the problem. It's how people are showing up within the structure that is the issue. And like I said, all the same issues can come up no matter what relationship dynamic you're in, or constellation as they say. No matter what relationship dynamic or model you are in, all the same issues can come up depending on you, depending on your partner or partners, depending on all the things. There's so many variables, and all the same things can come up, but in different ways. So same, but different. Red flag number 2 is the deceptive language, the spiritual bypassing and justification. So let's call a spade, guys. This is polyamory. This is not radical monogamy. There's nothing radical about it, and there's nothing monogamous about it. Monogamy, mono, meaning one other, poly, meaning many, okay? This isn't anything revolutionary. This isn't anything new. This is a bog standard, very common polyamorous dynamic. There's a primary couple that brings in another partner, and then they can all have sexual relations with other people too if they want to. That is polyamory. Like I said, call a spade. I just think it's ridiculous that they are trying to use the term radical monogamy. That is laughable to me, because radical monogamy would be radically choosing one other person even more deeply and going deeper into monogamy. That would be radical monogamy. This isn't radical, and this isn't monogamy. This is a bog standard, basic ass polyamorous dynamic that is nothing new, nothing revolutionary, nothing evolved from what we already know. It is just a standard polyamorous dynamic. And so I don't know why they are calling it radical monogamy. And I've questioned, why are they calling it that? Is it to try to soften the blow in a way? So Aubrey and Vylana have implied, since they've been together, that they are in a monogamous relationship, a divine union. And these were their vows to each other, divine union, monogamous, right? That's what has been implied to all of us through their content, through their courses, their retreats. This is what they have been saying it is. I don't see anywhere where they have said that until now that they're actually in a polyamorous dynamic. I have seen multiple episodes of their podcasts of them talking about how monogamous they are and this divine union and how it's amazing how they found each other. But the truth is, they're not monogamous, and almost from the get-go, very early on in their relationship, it has been polyamorous and open. And so it is deceptive to use that language. They are deceiving themselves. They're deluding themselves if they think that this is radical and if they think that this is monogamy. Are they trying to soften the blow because they know that they haven't been honest for a long time and they've been selling people courses, programs, content? People have been buying it, going to their retreats based on that implication that they are in divine union and in a monogamous divine union. And so are they trying to soften that blow? Are they softening the blow to Vylana because she clearly wants to be in a monogamous dynamic? So by calling it radical monogamy, it softens the blow there as well. So is there shame around it for Aubrey because he knows that a couple of years ago, he's saying he's never going to be polyamorous again and all the negatives about it and what he's learned from it. And now suddenly he's polyamorous again and he hasn't changed and he is still acting out his wounds. And that's not me saying that all of polyamory is people acting out their wounds. I don't think that at all. I think it can be done in incredibly beautiful ways. It seems like he has changed the terms of their vows, his commitment to Vylana and their marriage. And this reframe it's obscuring reality, and it is trying to make this betrayal seem like bravery, and it's not. It sounds progressive, it sounds evolved, it sounds spiritual and divine, but it's a lie. And they are sat there talking about being completely honest and complete honesty and truthfulness, yet they're sat there speaking a lie, living a lie, because their words do not match their actions and behaviors and the reality of what's happening. They are therefore not embodied. They are not embodied because they are talking complete shite. Although I don't think anyone owes anyone anything really, at the same time, when you are in a position of authority, power, influence, and when you are selling courses, retreats, programs, content based on a lie, and people are exchanging money with you and exchanging energy with you and listening to you and looking up to you, I think that's a bit shitty. And although I know that people need to have their own discernment and yada, 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 there's a whole conversation around that as well. This is obviously brought up, not relying on gurus and false gurus. It does need to be said that that is unethical. It is unethical to be living something completely different to what you are promoting and what you are selling. That is like selling snake oil, and that's not cool. And yes, nobody's perfect. Everybody's on their own journey. I'm on my own journey. I'm not perfect. My relationship isn't perfect, yet I support women with relationships, love, sexuality, sacred sexuality, all the things. And I'm not always completely aligned and perfect because I'm a human, just as we all are, right? But I'm in practice of what I preach as best as I possibly can be. And when I'm out of alignment or out of integrity, I will seek support to help get back into alignment so I can teach from a space of integrity. It lacks integrity to be selling things based on what you are implying is true, but then behind the scenes, it's not true at all. That lacks integrity, and that's not cool, and that's not really fair on people. that you know are coming to you for your service based on what you're implying, not what you're actually doing and being behind the scenes. There's a lot of mental gymnastics that Vylana is having to do to convince herself that this is devotion, this is evolution, this is mission, this is love, when actually it sounds a lot more like bypassing, manipulation and gaslighting to me. But I'm going to address that a little bit more in a bit. Another thing about language and deception is using the whole Isis told me, divinely guided, divinely led. This can be a form of spiritual bypassing. So language like, I was divinely guided, Isis told me, I was guided by Isis, divinely led. It may be sincere, and I'm not saying that people don't receive guidance. I receive guidance. I understand that. But it can also be a smokescreen that is being used to avoid inner conflict and relational pain. And it can even be used to put pressure on people involved. I do want to point out here that Aubrey did say that discernment is important, and you don't just act on guidance just like that. Like, you need to process and integrate it. And so I'm sure he wasn't meaning he just blindly acted on it, but I'm not sure how this all went down. And this is part of the story that I am questioning, because like, obviously Vylana had a really painful reaction to him sharing with her about how Isis has guided him and told him that he needs to impregnate both Alana and Vylana, which, by the way, I just find a little bit odd, because why hasn't Vylana had the same guidance come through? I know Alana mentioned about various people saying about her having children with Aubrey as well, and that was kind of synchronistic to her as well. But have any of these people, especially the women, checked in with their own wombs, with their bodies, with reality, with themselves? Have they actually checked in with themselves? So I don't really appreciate when a guy is like speaking as the authority on who he's going to impregnate. Like, I'm hoping it wasn't exactly like that. And it sounds like this actually broke them up for 3 months, that they actually parted ways, that Vylana and Aubrey parted ways because of this. And I'm wondering, in that time, was Aubrey with Alana? Or was it a case of, no, everybody parts ways and we all have time to go on our individual journeys and really think about things? Or was it a case of Vylana was out of the picture and therefore Alana and Aubrey came together and had those 3 months together? I'm just wondering. I don't know how that all worked. I would just like a little bit more context around that, because yeah, it sounded like it was very dramatic. And I do sense that Aubrey and potentially Vylana have an addiction to drama, have an addiction to the dopamine, the adrenaline, the cortisol that comes from drama within relationships, rather than learning how to create peace and contentment and calm. They are opting for the thrill of the drama. So I wrote here, using spirituality in this way shifts accountability to a higher power instead of facing personal responsibility. Well, it's not my fault. The goddess Isis told me to, so you can't put that on me. When actually it's probably just his own desire speaking to him, or even his own wounding speaking to him. Just because you have some kind of guidance or voice come through doesn't mean you should act on it immediately, doesn't mean that it's the truth, doesn't mean that it's what you should do or what you're supposed to do. And I think it's great that so many people who are speaking about this actually realise that. Just because something is said with conviction doesn't mean that it is truthful, and doesn't mean that it is beneficial. Fly has just entered the room, and that's going to probably be a little bit annoying. So sorry if you can hear a little fly flying around. Divine messages also should not be used to override someone else's feelings or bypass their feelings or bypass discernment. I think that's a really important point here, because I feel like these things are being used. The whole growth, sacrifice, world mission, love, radical love is being used to override Vylana's feelings. and override her truth and her true desires and bypass discernment. And I just want to say just about Vylana saying that she's never felt safer. And I think like the reason there's been such an uproar is because we've all been there in one way or another in our lives. We've all been there, right? And I just want to say that Vylana saying that she feels safe because everything is out in the open and honest now. Everything is completely honest now. There's no lies, there's no deception, even though they are deceiving themselves. I just want to say that honesty is not the same as being honoured. Honesty is not always true safety. Just because someone is being honest about hurting you doesn't mean you are truly safe. True safety includes being valued, being truly honoured, being cherished, being respected, and being emotionally attuned to. And to have someone who really cares about your emotions and your desires too, and who really wants the best for you. That's true safety, is wanting the true best for each other. And just on the, right, you can get out, mate, because you're pissing me off, little fly. Right, I just got rid of that pesky fly. Just ignore my fringe. I cut my own curtain fringe. It didn't go well. We'll just ignore that. We'll just ignore the fringe. Anyway. Oh my goodness, why did I do it? Why did I do it? Anyway, okay. I want to point out here that Aubrey mentioned that he would financially support Vylana whether she stays or goes, okay? I'm going to just read what I've put because it's just going to be easier. So that Aubrey said that it's this or nothing. He has basically said, I want to be with Alana. I want to be in a poly dynamic. I'm going to go against my vows to you. I'm going to go against my marriage. I'm going to break our promise. I'm going to take back everything I said when I was love bombing you at the beginning and telling you all the things you wanted to hear. And I'm going to break our divine union. And it's either this or don't be with me. And either way, whether you're with me or not, I will financially support you. And I felt something weird about that, him saying that and bringing that up. I feel like it was mentioned so that no one could say that Vylana was staying just for the money and the financial security. I don't think she is. I think that she is a powerful creatrix in and of herself, and that she'd be highly successful, maybe even more successful without Aubrey Marcus in her life. I think she is quite capable of financially supporting herself at this point. And I feel like I've put here, although the money piece was supposed to be an offer of love, I sense it has other undertones to it, because Aubrey's offer to financially support Vylana, no matter what she chooses, it's framed as generosity, but it subtly reinforces a power imbalance because it positions him as her provider, even if she leaves, which can come across a bit patronising and as if she is dependent on him. Whilst, even though it was likely meant to show unconditional love, it also has undertones of maintaining his control over resources and the relationship terms. And so it doesn't feel truly collaborative again. It doesn't feel like a true partnership. And he's saying, it's this path, take it or leave it, and I'll still fund your exit if you go. And there's just something that doesn't sit right with me about that. I feel like that is to soothe his own guilt about betraying his vows to Vylana, betraying her, because this is a betrayal, because this isn't what he vowed to her. This isn't what they agreed in the beginning. And so he is betraying her. And I feel like, yeah, it soothes his own guilt, but it bypasses the emotional weight of her pain. Red flag number 3, which is a continuation really from the last one, is just about gaslighting, sacrifice, and suppression of true desires. So we could all see, if you are somebody who is perceptive, who is highly sensitive, who is attuned to energies, who understands body language, then it was clear as day that Vylana appears to be overriding her true desires. And it is not just in the name of love for Aubrey, but it is now in the name of sacrifice for their world mission and vision. That's a lot of pressure. So this is about that stage 4 of the relationship, right? It's that shared creation. They have this shared vision to be role models for non-traditional forms of relating. This apparently now is the world mission that they have together. And they have this shared creation where they want children together and this vision for life and their mission in the world. But should these things really require you to sacrifice your freaking soul, your true desires, your body, and override your boundaries in the process? I don't buy into that sacrifice paradigm. I actually really strongly disagree with the sacrifice paradigm. Sacrifice isn't the same as devotion. It's just not. And when love or a relationship requires you to betray your own truth, then it is not conscious love like they're saying it is. This isn't a conscious love. It is based on deception. And we've established at the beginning, they're literally trying to say that the grass isn't green and the sky isn't blue, right? That is what they're trying to say. And we can see with our own eyes that the grass is green and the sky is blue. We can see that with our own eyes. Well, actually today, in the UK, the sky is grey. As per usual, the sky is grey in the UK. So it's based on deception from the get-go. They're deceiving themselves. They're deluded within themselves, unfortunately. And so I can imagine it has just been years of subtle manipulation, chipping away at Vylana. And that's why she can't see that she is in deep here. Like I said, Vylana says that she's never felt safer, but is this genuine safety, or is this a false sense of safety created through honesty, but without alignment, without embodiment, without true integrity? I've put here that devotion is not inherently noble if it asks you to override your body's signals, your true needs, or your truth. There's a difference between desires and needs. And I think most of this is based around Aubrey's desires rather than Vylana's actual needs. And I also put here, there's a difference between expanding your capacity and bypassing your limits. So number 4 is the sacrifice paradigm. So I've touched on this. So it's the paradigm and the belief system that true love requires sacrifice and that your world mission or whatever requires sacrifice. It's not always the case, and I think that it is an outdated paradigm. I speak about creating win-win dynamics rather than compromise and sacrifice. Obviously, when you're in a long-term committed monogamous relationship, there's going to be some compromise. You would be unrealistic to think that there's not. You do not need to destroy yourself or settle to be worthy of the love you truly want or to be spiritually evolved. Real devotion, real love doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like empowerment. I know Vylana says she's choosing consciously. I just really find that hard to believe when her body, her eyes, her energy, her voice just speak a very different story. There's ways to grow in love, and there's ways to grow in spirituality, and there's ways to grow in your world vision where you don't need to bypass your own heart. I teach something called the Quartet of Yeses, and to listen to your quartet is your body's guidance system. It is listening to not just your yoni, but your heart, your gut, and your mind. And when they're out of alignment, it means there is either work to do or the thing that you're considering isn't right for you. And I always say to go as fast as the slowest parts of you, and just to slow everything down and stop rushing into things, because it definitely sounds like this has just been a whirlwind and everything has been very fast paced and very rushed, and there's not been much actual peace and calm and integration and embodiment. If you're choosing something out of the fear of abandonment or out of obligation or pressure or even guilt, then it's not truly empowered. And I've noticed that sacrifice seems to be worn as this badge of honor, right? But often it's not true desired sacrifice. It is self-abandonment. So I've just put here, she may believe this is a conscious empowered choice, but the deeper truth might be it's this or lose him. That's not a conscious choice. That is survival mode. And when someone's choice exists in a false binary, for example, accept this or lose everything, it's not really a free choice. And love should liberate, not corner you like that. And this seems like freedom, but it may actually be a trap. So we are on to red flag number 5. And this is Aubrey deciding that he is going to impregnate both women. That is his decision and almost like an entitlement to these women's bodies. I was like, hang on a minute. Like I said before, this is their bodies and it's their choice too. They're the ones that are going to be carrying the babies and, potentially breastfeeding them. And so although Vylana did say that she had some spiritual guidance from her friends or whatever saying that the same thing and that it seemed synchronistic, like I said before, have they really checked in with their own bodies in reality? Have they checked in with their wombs? Have they actually inquired within to themselves, is this man somebody I want to be the father of my precious children? Do you want Aubrey Marcus to be the father of your precious children when he is deceiving people and deceiving himself and deceiving you? Is that the kind of man that you want to father your children? I think it's important to really feel into that. Aubrey choosing or blessing Vylana's sexual partner. I get it. When you're in an open relationship, you want to run things by each other. If you're the primary partnership, then you want to have each other's permission or whatever. But it seems like Aubrey may have chose Vylana's sexual partner, the guy that she is seeing and exploring with. And I don't know, I just got control masked as openness here. That's what came through. That's some kind of control. Like he is choosing that person. And I'm wondering, would Aubrey feel the same if this man was younger, buffer, physically, richer, more successful, and if Vylana wanted to have this guy's baby, would he feel the same? Because that would be a truly equal thing, right? Because right now it's not truly equal. I also question Aubrey encouraging Vylana to explore another man sexually. It feels like a permission slip for himself to be doing what he's doing with Vylana. It's his way of excusing and justifying his relationship with Vylana. My goodness, people, this is getting long, isn't it? Even though Vylana is a 28-year-old woman and she is a grown adult, when she met Aubrey, she was 26, I believe. And I do just want to point out that her frontal lobe has only just started developing, and there is a big difference between somebody who is 26 and somebody who is nearly 40 or in their 40s. I know what I was like when I was 26, 27, 28. Very, very different person to who I am now. And although I don't want to, obviously Vylana isn't a girl, she isn't a child, she's an adult, she's 28 years old. I do think it's important to say that there is a dynamic there at play. I also feel like there's a parasocial element to this, because I'm sure if Vylana is already in the spiritual community, she would have known who Aubrey Marcus is when he reached out to her. So I do think that there's a bit of a parasocial element there. It just creates an uneven ground from the get-go. So yeah, obviously Aubrey and Vylana, they're kind of a famous couple. So there is that parasocial element. And by the sounds of it, it sounds like that Aubrey and Vylana took Vylana into some kind of medicinal ceremony very soon after meeting her. And this echoes actually Aubrey and Vylana, because I listened to their podcast of when they first got married, where they were telling their love story, and there was a lot of psychedelics involved and ketamine, and it echoes that whole situation. And Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against plant medicine. I am a certified herbalist. I went to the College of Naturopathic Medicine and I studied there for 5 years to become a herbalist and a naturopath. And I am very in tune with nature. And I have absolutely nothing against plant medicine and using certain what have been known to be recreational drugs like ketamine and MDMA as a therapeutic type of medicinal purpose. But this needs to be done with great care and with the utmost safety, and these things must not be overused. I see a lot of people in the spiritual community and plant medicine community really overusing, and it's actually borderline addiction that I see playing out. You also need to respect the traditional ways these medicines are used, because there's a reason for that. It's like ancient wisdom that has been passed down, and that's probably through trial and error, and there's reasons why things are used the way they're used. And so to take something and try and sort of make it your own could be a little bit dangerous. And you have to understand that when you are under the influence of these psychedelics or these heart-opening, expansive chemicals, they open you up and you feel a lot of love, you feel ecstasy, you feel bliss, you feel all these things, and it feels incredibly real at the time, like it's going to open your soul and your spirit up to somebody. And so I really question this whole situation of them taking Alana into this medicinal ceremony so soon on, and them being the practitioners of that ceremony, when the ceremony was based around establishing what they're going to do in their romantic sexual dynamic, and like having her lay on the table. And there's something that just doesn't sit right with me about that whole situation, because it's opening her up. She's going to be very easily influenced in that situation and in that condition, and things that aren't real may seem real, feelings may be completely exaggerated, or and I know that a lot of people say that the plant medicines and the medicinal ceremonies help you find your truth, but it can also blur reality, it can blur lines, and you have to integrate. You cannot just act on that straight away. You cannot just be like, okay, all this stuff came up and so that means this is right, let's go. It's really important to have times of sobriety, be completely sober, so that you can integrate for months, maybe even a year. It's really important for you as well, so that you know you're not being dependent or reliant on these substances, so that it hasn't gone over into an addictive pattern or a misuse. I think it's important to have long stints of being completely sober and listen to what your body is telling you, your mind is telling you when you are not under the influence of any substance, because that is also your truth, okay? You need to take time to process, and you need to take time to integrate the lessons and the blessings of these types of substances and journeys that you can go on with them. And there honestly can be like a risk of compliance happening here, which is potentially masquerading as consent when there's admiration. So Alana may feel a sense of admiration for this established power couple in the spiritual community. And when there's a desire to belong, you know, you have to be careful here, because there is imbalances within the dynamic from the get-go. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Alana in a way, because she is like this goddess of purity and pure love, apparently, who can hold it all, and who is like there to heal and there to expand the dynamic. And I do question this in any relationship dynamic, any relationship structure or model, but I guess more so in a poly dynamic, because this is what I was going to say earlier. It's just about this whole growth thing. Should we really be sort of using people or utilizing people for your own personal growth like that? Like, as long as that's completely consensual and the other person knows about it, because I do know of couples that are kind of in a monogamish dynamic, but now and then they bring in other people, sort of like not an open relationship, because they will have threesomes with people, and it's to help bring things up, help bring triggers up, so that they can work on their personal growth to bond themselves together and grow within their monogamy even more. And I feel like does the other person know that they are there to do that? Are they aware of that? Because I feel like that person has needs and desires and vulnerabilities and wounds as well. And I just think, yeah, it needs to be a really transparent thing if that is the case. I really see that Aubrey is looking at Vylana through his heart-shaped rose-tinted glasses, and he's seeing her as this like pure love of purity. And there was something really icky about that as well. And I'm not sure if that came from Aubrey or if that came from Mark. And like I said, I'm going to do another video on Mark after this one. Yeah, this whole like purity thing didn't sit right with me. And yeah, I just feel like she's being idolized in a way, or put in this position. She's coming into this already established dynamic, and that's a lot for her to hold. And she is that much younger, without as much life experience, and she has just chosen to do this like medicinal ceremony with them that's just completely blown her wide open. And I feel like she's in a vulnerable space because of that. And as ethical, decent people, Aubrey and Vylana should know that, and tread really carefully there, you know, because this is people's feelings at stake. This is people's lives at stake. And just about the sister wound, so this is red flag number 6 we're on now, so just a couple more to go after this. The sister wound, I feel like this is like misapplied healing here, because Vylana talks about how this dynamic has brought up her sister wound, and she actually spoke about this in their episode after Aubrey and Vylana had just got married. She speaks about this sister wound then. This is obviously something ongoing for her, this sister wound of when she first was an only child and then her sister was born, and she felt like the love was taken away from her and she was really jealous, yada yada. And she's saying that this has brought up her sister wound again, and it's like her place of like her most pain in her life. And I just want to point out that a sister, a family sister, is not someone who is romantically or sexually involved with your husband. This is a very different type of sister here. And healing a sister wound doesn't have to require sexual polyamory or sharing your husband with another woman. Like, that is not necessary. There are many ways to build trust and heal that sister trauma outside of sharing your husband with another woman. Like, it's a completely different dynamic to the sister wound that she's speaking about, which is within her family. I just don't buy it that this is like a positive thing for her to work through her sister wound. I just don't think it's necessary, and it's another way that Vylana is telling herself that this is a positive thing for her. This is just going to help heal her sister wound, and maybe she will. Maybe it is one pathway for that, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be that way. And she shouldn't be putting pressure on herself to agree to that dynamic if it's not what she truly desires, just so she can heal this sister wound, because there's other ways of doing that. Number 7 is Aubrey's wound. So first of all, Aubrey is confusing eros and sexual desire and sexual energy for love. I feel it's really important to be sexually masterful of your eros and your sexual energy and your urges and your desires. You don't have to act on every urge, every desire, every sense of arousal. You can allow your sexual energy to be transmuted through your heart and through your crown chakra. You can sublimate that energy up, and you can utilize it in beneficial ways when you do that. I am not one of these people that is demonizing or shaming your root and your sacral centers. I do not agree with that. I think they're just as spiritual, just as amazing as the other energy centers in your body, if we're going to be talking about energy centers here. I don't demonize your sexual energy, your sexual centers, those things, but I do feel like you have to have emotional maturity and sexual maturity with these aspects of yourself. And to me, it sounds like Aubrey is a little bit emotionally and sexually immature when it comes to this. He hasn't mastered his eros. He hasn't mastered, he doesn't have sexual energy mastery here. And I have met tantric men who are masters of their sexual energy, and it is a very different vibe to Aubrey. So Aubrey is a thrill seeker. He loves the dopamine hits, clearly. He loves drama. He is addicted to those chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters, biochemistry, the chemicals of drama, of the thrill, of sexual desire, of psychedelics. He is living this fast-paced life, and it's the exact same pattern that has played out that we know of since the start. So his original fiance that he had, and then he got with Whitney, and then with Whitney he then got with Vylana, and literally within a year or two, within that, after the limerence phase that I was talking about, when it comes to reality hits, he then brings in Alana. So this is a pattern of behavior. I know that patterns of behavior will cycle back round until you actually deal with them. And they're very, very destructive when it's coming from a wound. And I strongly sense this is coming from a wound within Aubrey. And it can be very, very destructive. And sometimes it takes it coming back round and hitting you so hard and you messing up so much that it makes you face it. So maybe that is this moment for him. Maybe it will be, I don't know. But I feel like this would have been an opportunity for him to go deeper into monogamy, because that would have been radical monogamy. For him to actually say, I'm not going to go down this pathway again. I'm not just going to jump in on my primal urges. That's not to shame them. That's not to say they're bad or wrong or that you're unevolved because of them. But you can sit with them for a minute. Just calm down, slow down for a minute, and don't act on your sexual desire, arousal, your primal urges, and yes, instincts, okay? Because you can actually choose beyond those. And maybe there's some lessons and blessings in that path, because I don't think he's ever actually achieved that. I don't think he's actually ever done that, has he? So I feel like this would have been the perfect opportunity to stick to his vows and his promise, and to really look inwards and go in more into the relationship, deeper into intimacy, intimacy, like I said, going deeper into that monogamy, rather than looking outside of the relationship to fulfill that thrill and that addiction to the limerence, to the thrill, to the fast-paced thing, to the wildness, okay? You can find a different level of wildness. It's wild like the ocean, wild like the forest, within you, within monogamy. You don't have to be recklessly going out there and having this leaky energy. And I know they believe they are doing this in a really empowered, conscious way, in complete honesty, but they're not. But we know that they're not, because they're saying this is radical monogamy, which is completely deceiving themselves, when this is polyamory. And they're saying this is revolutionary when it is bog standard polyamory. They have a delusion and a deception within themselves, and wounding playing out, all of them. And like I said, I listened back to some of their old podcasts, and the one of after they telling their love story, I felt really sad for Vylana, because he was telling her all the things she wanted to hear. It was really like love bombing, and it was this whirlwind romance, and everything was acted on so fast. And when a man is being like that, it's not sustainable. It is that fire burning fast and then burning out. And I feel like that is Aubrey's wound. He needs to learn how to simmer. He needs to learn how to cool down and simmer, and to find the beauty and the eros and the desire and the novelty within that, because that is possible. So I wonder, is there an unmet wound that prevents Aubrey from going deeper with just one woman? And is this dynamic really about love and expansion, or is it just about fantasy and urges masked as evolution? What about prioritizing and valuing peace and being someone's peace, being each other's peace? What about being content instead of always looking for the next hit, always looking and striving and never being settled within yourself? What about being respectful and truly honoring your partner? And what about being grounded? Because none of this is grounded. This is all whoosh, whoosh, whoosh all over the place. The inability to go deeper with one person in monogamy can actually be a fear of true intimacy and not a limitation of monogamy itself. I'm actually not going to go into the masculine and the wounded masculine and the feminine and the wounded feminine all playing out here, because that is a whole other video in and of itself. These are concepts that I use, language that I use to help navigate my life and when I work with women as well. But I'm actually not going to go into the masculine and feminine dynamic and the wounded masculine and wounded feminine here. And I think these things get thrown around a lot without much true awareness of what it all means. And it's like a whole other video in and of itself that I'm not doing right now, but maybe I will come back to that at some point. I actually feel like there is a deeper lesson at play here other than just the thing about people following gurus or guru types or placing their trust into others. I think there's a deeper awakening happening around predatory behavior and around the abuse of sexual energy. I think that's a deeper lesson happening here and a deeper collective awakening that is happening. And it's something that I am going to speak about in my next video when I talk about Mark Gaffney. So I said at the start of this video that I was going to share with you some questions. The first lot of questions is if you are considering opening up your relationship, if you are considering infidelity, if you are experiencing limerence for someone other than your partner, and if you're wanting to actually remain in a monogamous dynamic but you're struggling. These are questions you can ask yourself that might be helpful. And then the next set of questions is the questions that I ask myself to utilize this situation as a self-inquiry and self-reflection. So they might be useful for some of you as well. So about infidelity, about opening your relationship, about experiencing limerence for someone else who isn't your partner, and wanting to be monogamous and wanting to go deeper into monogamy. These are the questions for you. Who am I not able to be in my current relationship that I wish I could be? How can I bring those aspects of me out with my current partner? What does this new person, if there is a new person you're considering, activate in me that my current partner doesn't activate in me, or that I don't allow myself to be activated? With the aspects of me or the things within me this new person activates within me, can I and how can I bring those parts of me to my current partner? What am I projecting onto this new person? Is it real or is it a fantasy? What am I avoiding within myself by looking externally outside of the relationship or considering going outside of the relationship? What am I avoiding within myself? And if you are somebody who's in a relationship and your partner is considering cheating or opening up the relationship, you can ask yourself, am I truly free to choose or am I afraid to lose? And I just want to speak about something because I see that we are all multifaceted diamonds, multi-dimensional, multifaceted diamonds, okay, with infinite edges to us, infinite sides to us. And really, we can't ever be the same person twice, because each new person you meet brings out a slightly different aspect of you, and you bring out a slightly different aspect of them than anybody else could, because that is a unique connection and dynamic, right? And so, yeah, you're never really the same person twice. You never truly know yourself because you're constantly changing depending on situations and things in your life. Is like activating all the different sides of your multifaceted, multi-dimensional diamond self, right? No one person can bring out all those sides of you. No, you cannot be all sides of you with one person. No one person is a village. No one person, you can't have everything you need all the time from one person. This is true, okay? I get that, right? You can't put that much pressure on one person. I can't possibly be everything Rory needs at all times, every single day, all the time. I can't possibly bring out every single side of him, because that's just not possible, because it's an infinite, multi-dimensional, multifaceted diamond, okay? This is what I'm talking about. And I guess people who desire the polyamorous dynamic, they feel like they want to get to know more aspects of their multifaceted, multi-dimensional diamond in a romantic and sexual sense. With people in monogamous relationships, they don't necessarily need those things to be romantic or sexual to activate the different sides of their diamond, and they can bring back what they've learned and who they've become to their relationship. And I love Esther Perel's work on infidelity and how not to become complacent within your relationship. And this applies to any dynamic. It's about not assuming you know everything about your partner and not taking them for granted or becoming complacent. It's about being a forever student and forever curious of who you're both becoming. And it's about re-choosing each other and coming back together to grow in that monogamy. And so with long-term committed monogamous relationships, there's times where you will grow apart a bit to do your individual things, and then you should hopefully grow back even stronger. Then you grow apart, and then you grow back even stronger. Then you grow apart, you grow back even stronger, right? And so that can happen within a monogamous dynamic. And when you're meeting other people and experiencing new adventures in life, whether separately or together, that's bringing out new sides of your multifaceted, multidimensional diamond, which is amazing. It doesn't have to be through romantic sexual partnership that you can experience those things, those sides of yourself. But I get that with people who want polyamorous dynamics, they do want to explore those sides of themselves, those romantic, sexual sides of themselves, that kind of love. And so yeah, I just wanted to say that. You do not need to be in a polyamorous dynamic in order to grow. There are infinite ways to expand within monogamy, and it's really about staying curious, and it's really about, I really feel like Aubrey is actually limiting himself by going down this thrill-seeking path all the time that's always the same. It's always the same, it's always the same. He actually hasn't tried something new. So it's not radical, it's not revolutionary, and it's nothing new. And that is both sort of in the macrocosm of polyamory in and of itself, but it's also in his own life as well. And it seems like it's not anything new for Vylana either, because she's been down this before, where the rug's been pulled from under her. She said she's never had a truly monogamous relationship. And so this pattern, these wounds, are like feeding on each other right now. And unfortunately, they've been going to Mark Gaffney for advice, which was probably the biggest mistake they could have made. So, okay, questions to ask yourself about this topic and maybe the triggers that have come up for you. So the questions that I asked myself are, where in my relationship or my life am I sacrificing for a false sense of safety? How am I bypassing my true desires and my true needs for love or my world mission or for spiritual growth and expansion? Where am I abandoning myself in my life and my relationships? How am I not honoring my partner right now? How can I honor my partner better? How am I not honoring myself right now? How can I honor myself better? Is there anything I'm doing that is damaging my partner or damaging the relationship? So I always see, I see our relationship as me, you, and the relationship, and they're all kind of separate entities. And sometimes it's important to put the relationship first, sometimes it's important to put yourself first, sometimes it's important to put your partner first, and create win-win dynamics between those consciousnesses, if you will. So is there anything I'm doing that's damaging my partner or the relationship? Is the thing that I'm considering, whatever that might be, worth risking my divine union with my partner? Will it damage my divine union with my partner? Is my desire of whatever it is, this could be a life desire, work desire, relational desire, stemming from a destructive pattern, a wound or trauma or my ego? rather than my pure heart? Where am I trying to convince myself? Where in my life am I trying to convince myself that I'm okay when I'm really not? If I come out of my head and land fully into my body, what does my body tell me? And what does my quartet guidance system tell me with whatever situations I'm struggling with right now? What does my root, my yoni, tell me? What does my gut tell me? What does my heart tell me? What does my mind tell me? So everybody is on their own journey, and this isn't about shaming anybody. Like, I hope that comes across. I'm not trying to shame anybody here. I am just being a reflection, being a mirror, being a voice. I think that any type of love requires discernment. It requires self-honor and honesty. I really feel it's important to stop glamorizing sacrifice, to stop bypassing our truth in the name of bravery, in the name of spiritual evolution, and in the name of love. And I really feel it's important to master peace. I really feel it's important to sit quietly and listen to the quiet truth, which may not be a quiet truth, of our hearts and our bodies. And in order to do that, you need to be slower and really listen. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I am probably repeating a lot of what other people have said, but I do hope that I have offered some value to you and that you've received some benefit from listening to me and or watching me today. If you have, please do feel free to give this video a thumbs up and let me know if you liked it. And feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, and feel free to check out my website and my offerings. I am going to film the Mark Gaffney video now, and I can already feel this like shift in my vibe because it's quite a heavy topic, especially for me to speak about, but I feel like it's really important for me to do that video. So I'm going to go ahead and film that. So I'm going to love you and leave you, and I will see you in my next video. I'm wishing you an amazing day, and as always, remember to keep it juicy. Bye.